Welcome back, everybody. Thursday night. It is the middle of the end of February, so you know what time it is. We're hot and heavy in mock draft season because you like it. People love to read about the mock drafts. They love to criticize. As you saw last week's show, you love to criticize when we make picks that drive you crazy. So we're going to do it tonight. We got another mock on the docket, but this time we're going to focus on one quarterback leagues. Because we know they're still out there. We know they're hiding in the weeds. So we're going to help you out. We're going to talk through what we potentially think are probably the top 12 to 24, and we're going to have some fun with it. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys hanging out and chatting with us. So if you have questions, throw them up. If you want to talk about our picks, feel free to throw them up. And if you have questions, we will answer them in this show. We like to do it live, as Skip would say. So we're here to help. Ultimately, hey Dollar, it's good to see you, man. Ultimately, for all of the great rookie content you're hearing us mock and talk about, rookiedraftguide.com. Us on the IDP side, as well as the offensive guys, have been working hard on rookie content. You've obviously seen my face on every rookie video on YouTube here. We're trying to give you as much information as we can so that you're ready for your rookie drafts come, late April, May, June, whenever you draft. So we thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we're going to hit it. We're going to get going. But first, Paul, obviously I heard pre-show how things are going, but what's happening in your world? You doing all right today?
Yeah, I lost just a crap load of money on the stock market, but I made it yesterday. Today was not fun at the office. It's almost Friday. How are you?
Ready for the weekend. I mean, even on Monday night's show, we were like, it's crappy. This hasn't been the greatest week in the world, that's for sure. It's like I was telling you pre-show, lost out on an Iserman rookie I was trying to get on the eBays, which it always drives you nuts when you lose out in the last few seconds of an auction. But whatever. We live and learn.
Welcome to eBay.
I know. Welcome to eBay. Uh, News-wise, everything's pretty quiet on the NFL front, so we don't have a lot going on to talk about news-wise. So we're just going to get right into it. Oh, what
Actually,
do you want to talk about?
actually, I thought it was hilarious how I saw that within a 12-hour stretch, because it is the Thursday show, that Joe Milton and McCaffrey
Oh,
were transferring out of their schools. I thought about you and smiled a little bit.
yeah. I wrote a Devi profile on Milton back at the beginning of 2020, just before the season started, and the tough thing is I love the athletic ability, but he's probably better suited to convert to like tight end and try his hand at another position because I just don't see it happening for him. McCaffrey, I was really surprised. I thought he might be able to, in the right scheme, develop, but he's kind of disappeared as well. So
The other interesting news that I saw was Tyler Shaw moved from Oregon to Texas Tech. I don't have him first overall, but I've seen a couple
yeah,
mocks next year that have him super high.
yeah,
So
another name to watch.
it's, it'll be interesting. If they can somehow get Baker, Mahomes, and then this kid to go top 10 overall,
Starting to see a trend.
it'll be interesting out of some little school that I don't want to say that you haven't heard of, but they're not much of a force. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
Speaking of haven't heard of, I'm still in the midst of my pinnacle of Devi draft. Shout out to Shane and all the guys who are in the midst of our now second Devi draft. We are in round 17, and I, at the turn, took two tight ends. I took Delaney Walker Jr., which is hilarious, because his dad is just about to retire from the NFL, and then took Oscar Delp. I am loading up on tight ends of guys that people have never heard of, and it's hilarious. I mean, we've now drafted 125 rounds of Devi players before we actually ever play a game. It's exhausting to try to prepare for this. I mean, you're drafting, high school juniors and seniors and small school guys, FBS guys. It's intense.
Drafted 4-year-olds yet? What's the age limit here?
I don't believe there's an age limit. I did see somebody draft a freshman in high school, so So far, that's about the earliest I've seen. But I was excited to grab Delaney Walker
Yeah.
Jr. Everybody all of a sudden started making a run on former NFL kids, Frank Gore's kid and some of them. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna grab an NFL kid. It's pretty hilarious. But if for anybody who does want, obviously this is a Devy show typically throughout the year. Right now we're on rookie content. If you want to keep up on all the Devy madness, over on Twitter, Pinnacle of Devy is where Shane's been posting all the picks and a link to the Google Doc that has all the picks. So you can see all of that. Obviously we're doing rookie mocks, but if you do Devy leagues, your Devy drafts will be coming up very shortly. We certainly will give you a laundry list of guys that you could look at. Some of which you will probably not draft for another year or two, but that's okay. It's good to know about them now.
Or 6 to 8.
Or potentially 6 to 8, depending on. So, that being said, we'll get into it. We're just going to hit it. I'm going to start with the first pick because I know that Paul will not do this, but right now, if you were doing a rookie draft, this guy would go at the 1 spot. I'm going to go Najee Harris, running back from Bama. I will preface it by saying I posted in our Discord chat earlier today that Javonta Williams is quickly becoming my favorite running back in this draft class. He's already leapfrogged Etienne. I had my daughter's dance tonight, so at dance class I sit with my iPad and I watch film. So I was watching film of Etienne and Williams because I kept going back and forth, and I was like, Williams is better, more explosive, better hands, better between the tackles, just as good size wise. He actually is 5'10" and like 10 or 15 pounds on Etienne. I mean, like all these things, I'm like, why is Williams not my number 2 running back? And then I started watching him and Najee Harris film, kind of comparing them side by side. I'm like, why is Williams not my number 1 running back? So by rookie drafts, Javonta Williams might be the top back to target. But right now it's Najee Harris just because that's what I know people are going to do. He's arguably one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the class in most people's eyes. So at the 1, it's going to be Harris. That's my long version.
Yeah, I just have a lot of speed concerns. I mean, when it really counts, he just lacks in speed. I mean, it's like when Leonard Lake, he stole that vice grip. He just lacks speed for getting away from the cops. And then they caught up. And then they realized that it was awful.
There's your 1.
There's your 1. Yeah, I will not be selecting him first or 11th. I think he's day 3, just meh.
I just listened.
And I am so low on him that you don't have to worry about me ever sniping him. My opinion on the subject does not matter because I'm not going to own him.
Well, and that, but so that's the important thing. It's important to explain why you don't want a player. Obviously we're having this conversation and this back and forth, but it's good to see both sides of the coin. It's good to see a person that just isn't sold on a player. And it's good to see I'm not really sold on the player, but I see what I expect to, as I've evaluated him, I see what the NFL likes about him. I just don't know fantasy-wise if he's the best back in this class. I'm really leaning towards Williams being the best back. So currently today, if a draft was happening, I know the person at the 1 spot would pick Harris just because running back in a 1QB league is, I mean, that's what people go for. I mean, I've seen leagues in the past where it's running back. I mean, they just keep stacking running backs, and you don't see a wide receiver go till 4, 5, 6, and it's like, whoa. I mean, running back is just king in a 1QB league. So I'm going Harris there, but I will guarantee that I will flip that to Williams here soon because I just love Williams. Like, he's so good, so dynamic. I mean, there's nothing I don't like about his game so far, and I'm really trying hard to find something I don't like.
As far as Harris is concerned, he didn't really show it as a freshman. He somewhat showed it as a sophomore. He didn't really show it as a junior. And then everyone was all hyped for him, and then he went to school again, basically confirming that he wasn't good. And then he has 4.5 NFL level linemen in front of him in a season where LSU was not showing up. You have a bunch of the other SEC schools that had issues and didn't show up, and then he looks awesome. I can't get behind this when he's got obvious physical concerns. When he only showed it for 1.5 seasons, I'm not going to take this risk this high at all. There's just 3 or 4 other running backs I'd rather have, and when you know he's going super high, I'm just out.
Right. Yeah, like I said, I think Williams will wind up being my top back in this class when I actually get to rookie drafts. But right now, it is what it is. All right, so you're up at 2, and
Yeah.
I assume you're going to take the guy that I would think is number 2 as well.
Team needs. Um, I'll let you take the guy that, I mean, I love him also, but I'm going to take
That's who I
Chase
thought would go here. Yep.
second. Somewhere along the format, you're going to have someone who earned the right at picking first, second, or third, and they're going to be absolutely clamoring for him. If you inherited the first overall selection by sheer luck, then maybe you take Williams. But his skill, his physical skill, route running, and when the ball gets thrown high, whew, he's got it all. He does have somewhat of a diva thing where he's not the toughest, but whew, it's all there. I mean, if you drafted him first, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, I've really been
Completely fine.
surprised about the conversations about somebody else being the top receiver outside of Chase, just because recency bias really is what it seems like. I mean, what else did you need to see in 2019 from Jamar Chase? I mean, such a good perimeter player. I mean, he does everything. He could be a red zone threat, but he can be a big play threat. He's a solid, probably plus route runner. Obviously, could use a little bit more refinement, but he does pretty well, pretty smooth breaking in and out, and doing some of the things you need to do on the route tree. It's so hard not to love Jamar Chase. I mean, I like a lot of the other receivers in this class. I mean, Smith and Waddle, all these guys are solid and very, very nice players, but there's just nobody that compares to Chase in this class, I don't think.
All right,
All
and you're
right,
up at
so
3.
up at 3 is the guy I would probably want at number
Shocking.
1, which is Javonta Williams. I've already obviously made the case for him earlier. He does everything very well. For a while, Etienne was kind of RB2 in my mind, and then as I put them side by side, there's no way. I mean, very similar size guys. Etienne's 5'10", a little over 200. Williams is 5'10", more like 215, 220, depending on what he weighs in at. But they're just as explosive. I mean, they're both very explosive running backs, but Williams is just as explosive with with good hands and good ability and pass protection. I mean, he gives himself the opportunity to be a 3-down running back. He can be on the field for all 3 downs because of his pass protection. And I think that really does carve him out to be a really high-end possible fantasy running back because he'll be on the field more often, potentially. So I'm excited about him. I think he's going to be a really nice fantasy option and really should be in conversation for the top pick.
If he had slightly better hands and or route running, I don't want to say footwork because he's got smooth feet, but it's just not refined for like routes. He reminds me of Le'Veon in the fact that he's 220
Mhm.
range and he's just smooth and fast. And I know he's got some issues, but he's got a sky high ceiling. I I I think he would be second overall for me, maybe third if you needed some other positions, but yeah, I'll get behind that one
Okay.
100%.
All right, so you're up at the 4 spot.
All right, let's make some people mad. Uh, Kyle Pitts will be the 4th selection.
I had him at 6, so it's not far off.
Here's the reason behind it. I feel that the 2nd to about 6th ranked receivers, I don't see huge separation. I'm a huge Brevan Jordan fan. If I pick 4th, first of all, I would move out of the selection if that's an option. But I feel the difference between Pitts and maybe Jordan and everyone else at that position is not the same. The difference between my 2nd and 6th ranked receivers, I'll just move my 2nd rounder up in the late 1st, or I hope one of them falls, or it would be sneaky to take Pitts and like Freiermuth and just be like, you know what, I'm fine at the position moving forward. I'll look at something next year. But the drop off here is a lot. The drop off at the other positions, not so much. If this is an actual draft, I think that the 3rd ranked running back, whoever lands in a nice spot, is going to end up as the selection. But if I earned 4th, Pitts, and then he'll basically help me select 1st next year.
Well, and to help support your claim, so obviously I'm not a professional scout. I will say that gladly. I follow a lot of scouting services, and I was listening to I like the Draft Network's different podcasts they do, and I was listening to Draft Dudes today, and they were talking about, and it was supposed to be a wide receiver podcast, so they were talking about the top wide receivers, and one of the guys said Pitts is the top receiver in this class. Like, I mean, he's like, he's better than Chase, he's better than all of them. I mean, that's what you're getting with Pitts. You're getting a guy that could be the best receiver in this class at the tight end position. So taking him at anywhere after, probably 3 or 4, I don't hate it. I mean, like I said, I have him at 6, and that's only because it's hard for me. I can't say that I've ever seen a tight end drafted in the top 5 in a 1QB league, so that's where my bias comes in. Trying to think about how people draft and how drafts kind of fall out. Pitts is arguably the number 3 kind of talent in this draft, I think. So I don't hate. I love the pick. I love Kyle Pitts. I've said it countless times. I love this tight end class. I mean, this is going to be a tight end class that really should shake up fantasy if you pick one of these top 4 guys. I mean, they really are going to be nice tight ends.
I have seen it happen once, and I'll give you a hint. It would be the 2nd per show.
Oh, Aaron Hernandez. What?
No, he wasn't 1st round.
Oh, no, that was the Gronkowski draft, wasn't it?
Nope.
Well, no.
Him either.
I'm saying
son of a Hall of
Famer
Famer
in that same draft.
Yes, they went in the same. Son of a Hall of Famer.
I'm drawing a complete blank.
Shares the same name.
Why am I drawing a complete blank?
Kellen Winslow.
Oh, he was terrible. That's why I was drawing a blank. He completely botched people.
They had Larry Fitz that year and just not much else. So yeah, he went super high.
Yeah.
In drafts.
No, not worth it. But Pitts is worth it. Unless, and obviously we can't determine injuries and things, but I mean overall talent, he's just insane.
Yes. He's got concussion issues, but so does everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, now that they're figuring out how light of a hit you have to get,
it's tough.
Everyone gets them, but yeah, I will stand on that pick and move on. It's not going to be what actually happens, but again, if you're someone who earned 3rd, 4th, or 5th, okay, he helps you pick 1st.
True story.
Which is ultimately what you're looking for. You don't want to be picking 4th, 5th, or 6th because you're not good enough at making the playoffs, and you're not bad enough that you pick 1st. So he helps you pick 1st.
Jaws says, got that 2nd pick, almost leaning Chase, but feeling compelled to get a running back. Williams versus Etienne is a tough call. Jaws, if you were listening from the beginning, Williams is a clear-cut winner for us. I mean, we're both well on the Williams over Etienne train. Uh,
Unless you're picking second and then you pick Micah Parsons because it's Jaws and he likes defense.
it's true. It's got to be an IDP league, so you got to go Parsons, right? All right, so
Right.
at 5, I will go Etienne, just because at this point. So at this point, it was either Etienne or Rashad Bateman, and I think I like Rashad Bateman more, but I went with the running back purely because, again, my bias, 1QB drafts, running backs always kind of reign king. So I would be fine either with Etienne or Bateman here. I think both are really nice prospects. And I don't want to, like, I'm not poo-pooing on Etienne. I think Etienne will be a solid fantasy producer. There's just, I don't think he's Williams good. Like, I think he does a good job, and he's very explosive, especially if you get him out on the edge. But between the tackles, I just saw too many plays where he would just bump into somebody and he was out. Like, there was just no fighting through. It was almost like he had to have enough wiggle room to make it through without getting a lot of action from the defender. And I saw him break some tackles. I mean, it wasn't that he couldn't break the tackles, but he just went down too easy between the tackles, and Williams was a battering ram between the tackles. So, but I still think Etienne can be a really nice fantasy producer.
I think the recent hatred for him has went a little
Yep.
far. I think there's some receivers I'd want over him, but if he lands nice,
Sure.
sure, all day. He goes fourth, and then you're moving down to get Pitts at 6 or something. But yeah, he's just you don't teach what he
Hmm.
has. Maybe in the NFL, someone can be like, "Hey, we're gonna run a different scheme," and maybe he fits it a little nicer. But he's got jets, and you just don't teach that at all.
Absolutely. All right, so we're at 6 now.
Um, let's see here. I got heat for taking Waddle over Bateman last week, and when I actually like Bateman more, and you can look at the sheet that we're both on and know that I was behind that as well. So I'm gonna go Rashad Bateman, just height, weight, speed, and tape. You just don't teach what he has. Um, just someone that has a shot at that upper tier in fantasy, and you're not spending just Uber money for him like you are Chase. I think he's got a solid floor unless he ends up with like I was gonna say the Jets, but they took Mims and he plays the same split end
Hmm.
position. I'm trying to think. Houston maybe. Let's say Houston. They don't have anyone after the Watson deal, which is going to happen, is not going to happen, whatever. But let's say he ends up in Houston. I would select him, but not this high still. So, what
Yeah,
do you think about
the
him?
tough thing for me is at this point in the offseason with just the craziness that's gone on with Houston, it's hard to see. In my mind, they're very similar to Philadelphia, where I look at what they're doing to building their roster, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, you should have been trying to trade off assets, not releasing. Like, all this stuff they've done just doesn't make sense. So if a player goes there, I'm immediately going to have kind of a feeling on him. Um, so far, these 6 players have been my top 6. Now, obviously, Pitts was 6 for me, not 4, but I don't hate any of these picks because this is the way my 6 have been. So I think talent wise, I think Bateman is going to push and make a case for being right there at wide receiver 2. People are really sold on even in the chat. Jason says he'd take Waddle over Bateman. He's a Minnesota guy, obviously, um, so he would know. He knows his Gophers. He also says electric playmaker. Bateman is solid, but I want a game-changing wide receiver. Waddle gives you that upside. So the interesting thing to me is when you look at guys like Waddle and Kadarius Toney, and you look at them, people immediately say, okay, which one's the next Tyreek Hill? Because that's what everyone wants, is that chess piece that can be extremely dynamic. And they did the same thing last draft with Ruggs and some of those guys. And who's the next Hill? Like, you just don't find guys like Tyreek Hill. So I try not to compare Waddle and Toney and some of these guys. Like, they're big play type guys. They have the ability to take the top off the defense, but I would rather a guy that I feel like has a solid floor and the upside to have a really high end ceiling as well. And I think Bateman has that. He has the big playability like a guy like Waddle, but he's not as fast. Obviously, we all know that Waddle's probably going to be, low 4.3s, maybe even high 4.2s, uh, depending on what he's running on. And I'm just sold more on Bateman as an overall fantasy producer over a guy like Waddle. I get nervous that it's kind of that boom bust thing, where you're going to get 4 to 6 games where he's producing wide receiver 1, 2 numbers, and then you're going to get a bunch where he's not. Where I don't think Bateman has that same concern. I think you're going to get solid production all the way. So, I agree with you. Our boy Taylor's in the chat. Taylor, whoop, buddy, yeah. He says Waddle's high risk for him as well. So I'm going with Bateman.
I actually look at it the other way. If it's a split end, I typically view it as more of a ceiling play. If it's a slot receiver, they usually have a more solid floor. And if you want either of the Bama receivers, you have a floor option. But if you want someone that's going to be, ADP number 4 overall, I don't know if I see that out of anyone not named Chase, Bateman, or Seth Williams out of this year. And I'm not saying that they can't be good, but like top 5 overall fantasy asset. Those are the 3. If you want that ceiling, you're going to sacrifice floor. So it's a who am I selecting here and what do I need?
Right. No,
So I'll go with you pick 6 because you earned it and you're on the way down. If you pick 6 because you inherited the selection and you need the playoffs, take somebody with a floor.
Yeah. Oh.
Who are you selecting is pretty much what
Right.
it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wilson Hensley in our chat. Welcome back, brother. I have pick 4, 6, 8 in the first round and 6 and 8 in the second, and he's scared that he's going to miss out on Pitts. He's trying to move to 3 just to have a better chance to get him. I don't think you have to do that. Depending on the type of league you're in, you really should have no problem getting him at 4 or 6, I would think.
If I had, do you say 6 and 8 in the second round?
6 and 8 in the second round, and then 4, 6 and 8 in the first round.
Keep your firsts, move 6 and 8 up, and maybe you flip like a second next year, or a third next year, or a third this year. You got multiple thirds this year. Whatever it is, move all those selections up and get someone that we select between 10 to, we'll see how far we get here tonight, but 10 to 14 range. But you move all them selections up and pick someone that we have. But I would hold on to 4, 6, and 8.
I would think you would have no problem at 4 or 6 getting Pitts. And quite honestly, so at that point, I would look at see what number 3 and number 5's roster looks like, because a lot of times, guys are going to look to fill needs over taking best player. I mean, you see it time and time again. Especially like I've said, in 1QBs, you're going to see running back go early like crazy. So if it's something where this is a tight end premium league, then he says not tight end premium, but he only has Jonnu as his tight end. If it's not tight end premium, you should have no problem getting him at the 6. I mean, quite honestly, unless the guy at 5 is just inept at tight end and he's got nothing, I would probably say 6 should be safe for Pitts. If you're really worried, take him at 4. I mean, you're either way. I think you're going to be fine.
Also, if I would skip him at 4 because you're probably going to see one of the running backs head 4 or 5. And if he's not there at 6, just move all your seconds and something else to get Jordan later. Or if that fails, move everything up for Freiermuth at the 2-1 to 2-3. But you should be fine on that front.
Yeah, and not in a tight end premium situation. I think you'll have no problems. I wouldn't go getting crazy trying to get in the top 3 to get Pitts for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are at the 7 spot. I'm gonna go with the guy who I have at 7, although I think this could flip flop quickly. But I'm gonna go Devonta Smith. I obviously everybody's talked about the weight being a thing, but I think even if you add another 10 to 20 pounds of muscle onto this kid, he's still very dynamic. I think he could easily still play nicely at 6'1", 185, 190, and I know that's still a little underweight, but the way that he plays and the fact that he can play anywhere across that receiving core, you've seen him in the slot, you've seen him as the Z, you've seen him as the X. I mean, he can do it all. I mean, and there really isn't a lot that I'm nervous about outside of the fact that, obviously the size is a little bit of an issue for some people. But there's just not a lot. He's kind of a Javonta Williams in my mind. There's not a lot I don't like about his game. He runs good routes. He's very intelligent. He doesn't make. I didn't see a lot of concentration drops when I did see him having any trouble. It was highly contested stuff that he was taking on, and sometimes seeing some situations fall there. But I like Smith. I think he's going to be a nice pro. I think if he goes to a team that's on the rise like Miami or somebody, I would still feel comfortable taking him as a high first round pick. I'm a big fan. I like him. I think he's solid. I just don't think he's one of the top 2 wide receivers in the draft class.
Yep. When it was January-ish, and there were discussions amongst us and some of the others, and I'm taking Smith over Chase, I just zipped my lips and went, it's not going to happen, but
keep telling yourself that.
Okay. Yeah, you keep, but this is what, 7? Sure, he's got a solid floor. I don't know if he's got that elite ceiling, but we didn't think that Ridley had the elite ceiling, and he finished, wide receiver 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. That's elite-ish. So, sure. Obviously, landing spot for him is going to matter because he is slot and flanker only. But, okay, we're picking 7th, not 2nd. So, sure, I'll get behind that one.
Yeah, you're up at 8. I'm reading.
Looking at a question.
Yeah. So Wilson says his concern if he waits past 4 on Pitts. The other tight ends are not value enough for 6 or 8, but they will probably not be there in the second at 6 or 8. That's a big issue causing me to spend big. Wilson. I mean, like Paul said, Wilson. Take 6 and 8 in the second round and try to move them up. Try to get up into the earlier second round. Even if you take 6 and 8 and package it up and say, listen, I'll give you these 2 seconds to move up till the back end of the first or the early second, see what owner's willing to. Now, obviously, those are draft day trades. You're probably not making those this early in the process, but that's what I would do. I wouldn't spend 4 on Pitts in a non-tight end premium league because Jonnu Smith can easily be your tight end 1 this year, and you're okay. And then you're adding another solid player to a position that you might need or in a situation that you might be able to start sooner. Pitts may not be an every week starter this year. Like rookie tight ends, it's hard for them to really hit the ground running. I mean, you see it, but it's not the norm.
In that situation, even if you completely whiff on the, I guess on the 3 options that we're throwing it here, offer the seconds and like a third for Komet.
Mm,
Just like overspend to get to dump your seconds.
yeah.
If you feel that that's your only option, fine. I've been a huge OJ Howard fan forever. You're gonna tell me that that the OJ Howard owner is not going to accept 2.8? No, they're gonna snap accept that unless I own him, and the answer is no. But I'm probably the only one that's gonna not accept that.
Yeah, I would
But
definitely go after a
there
guy
are
like
other
Komet for
options.
sure. OJ Howard, I don't even know what to do with him. Like I like the player. I was a big fan of him. I drafted him when he came out in a few leagues, but I just
I stick. I guess I stick hard with the talent over situation, and it will hurt me in situations. I liked Arcega Whiteside. I still like Arcega Whiteside. That being said, I was also the guy who flipped my first for Cam Akers in a couple leagues,
mm-hmm.
and you know, I just stick with the philosophy. And if you can find someone that's talented, there's lots of ways of getting home. You don't have to get Fryermuth to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about this draft is there's four really nice tight ends. Obviously we know the big three in Fryermuth and Jordan and Pitts. Hunter Long will be that number four. He may not be as elite as the others, but he's a really nice tight end. So Wilson, I would caution you to be very careful to not overspend, especially in a one tight end league, or I mean in a non tight end premium league. Four I think is just going to be too rich for a guy like Pitts. Uh, unless you know an owner, unless you know the guys that are picking at 3 and 5 are targeting him, and that's a thing you can figure out quickly. Talk to the owners in your league,
Yeah,
see what they're thinking. You don't have to straight out ask them, are you taking Pitts at 3 or 5? But you can kind of get a feel for your
you can
ownership.
see. You can
Yeah.
see.
So, all right. So you are up at the 8.
All right, let's make two select viewers at home upset. Trey Sermon, running back out of Oklahoma. He's just really smooth.
Oklahoma.
Hey, he played there. He's just really smooth. He doesn't have the route running footwork yet, and I don't know if he ever will have it. But he's just really solid. He's faster than I expected. He's got decent-ish hands, and he's just really smart. I like the way he plays, and I've liked him for 4 years now. Like I said, he's out of Oklahoma. Joe, did you hear that? He's out of Oklahoma. That might be one of the people that needs to hear that.
He did his best work in the for the team down south, but yes, he did play for Oklahoma. Sermon is an interesting player because he really, he obviously transferred and had a really big 2020 campaign. I mean, when he was on the field, I mean, he was just shredding defenses, showing you what you expected to see, 2 and 3 years earlier, but just it didn't happen the same way. I, for one, think he could be a sleeper type player because I know those injury concerns could really potentially scare NFL teams to drafting him as kind of a like late day 2, day 3 running back. I could easily see him being a third to fourth round running back, and I don't know what that would do to his fantasy draft stock. I have no problem with him going in the first round. I think when you look at the profile after you get past the top 3 or 4 running backs. So the issue I have here though is Kenneth Gainwell. Like I'm a big Gainwell fan. And I don't know. As I've compared the guys, it's like, what do I do? Because I like Gainwell a lot. I like Sermon quite a bit. Red flags. There are red flags for all of the running backs after kind of the top 3 guys. There's enough red flags where you're like, but, and so that's my struggle. Gainwell, Trey Sermon, Shuba Hubbard is a guy that I know you don't like, but I'm a big fan of. coming back from an injury. He's now a year past his injury. I think we'll see a better version of him, kind of more like what we would expect beforehand, as long as he's working at it. Potentially, Kylan Hill. I mean, there's like three or four. That's four running backs right here that I like, but I just don't know what to do with them when it comes to kind of where to put them in my rankings at this point.
One of these 8, 9, 10 selections is going to be owned by someone who still owns their own first and made the playoffs. They probably look at Gainwell or Sermon as someone who can help them right now,
Right.
more than some of these others. And it's not going to be all receivers once we go here. I mean, yes, I want to see landing spot as much as anyone else, but if he ends up in a spot where he has not someone elite in front of him, hopefully you can get playoff help out of him, a la Akers or something from this last year. I know he was out week 16, but I mean, hopefully you can have someone that you plug out there in the playoffs. I know he's not going to have the longest career, but so what? If you pick at the end of the first here and you need help at that position, it's the pick.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point that you make there. When you get to this point in your playoff teams that own their first still, you're potentially going to draft need more than anything. I mean, you don't always see it. BPA is always a very good way to go, but a lot of teams that are playoff teams want to make sure that they've got good depth at positions that may be a little thinner, and running back tends to be one of those positions. So I don't hate it. And at the 9, I'm going to do the guy that I would be trying to figure out who to draft first. So I'll go Kenneth Gainwell here. Kenneth Gainwell, the thing I like about him is I could easily see teams flexing him out to be in like the slot as like a slot type receiver. He's very smooth, very crisp. He has great body control. I really like the player. I just don't. I don't know. Like I could see him being a guy who gets a regular amount of work, but his pass blocking I didn't see as nearly as up to the par with with Williams or even Etienne. So that was kind of my concern. The hurdle for him being a 3-down type back is I just don't see the pass protection to where it would need to be. So I just don't know how much on the field action he'll get. Is he just a first or second down guy? Is he used in passing down situations in the slot type thing? I mean, that's he has that kind of gadgety ability to him, but he's got good enough size to be a early down running back as well.
Yeah. He can legit play receiver, and that's going to be a huge help for him. The same thing with the Sermon selection in kind of a different way. Sermon's going to have a lot of carries that get him 8, 9, 12-ish points. Gainwell's going to have a lot of receptions that get him in that area.
I could see that.
And if you own your first or something and you made the playoffs, that might help you more than some receiver who's got insane upside but no floor. If you need the position, yeah, he would be my, trying to think, clearly next running back. Yeah, pretty much so with what we have left. I mean, I like Hill, but
I like Hill a lot too.
Gainwell's probably safer. Yeah, I'll get behind that one as well.
Are you taking it?
But go ahead. But he's got a limited floor or ceiling
potentially
as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're picking
10 now.
10 here. I've been staking the flag for Brevan Jordan for about 3 seasons now, and I'll take him here. I think that there's a separation between him and Freiermuth. I know that there's a lot who don't share that, but I think that there's separation. I think he's right behind Pitts, not that it's Pitts a huge gap in there and then him. I just like what you see from the athlete out of him. I know he's got some. There are times where he doesn't necessarily show up, but you also see instances like the Florida, it's your 2019 tape, yes, where he looks elite, just an elite athlete running over other elite athletes. So I'll go with the upside. I think he isn't the selection if you own your own first, but if you own somebody else's first, all day, all day
Yeah.
in that
Well,
spot. If
yeah.
you own someone else's first and you select like the top four or something,
Yeah, for
Jordan.
me, the only real knock I have on him is just I think the route tree needs to get better. I think he needs to get more expanded there, but the athletic profile is just insane. I mean, he really does rival Pitts when it comes to the kind of athlete he is, the pure athlete side of things. So, the things that you can't teach, he just excels at. So, again, I think when we look back, this will be one of the better tight end classes in recent memory. Probably within a 10 to 15 year window, this is going to have some of the best prospects coming out. I mean, these guys are all really solid, and I'm a big fan of the top 3, 4 tight ends in this class. Uh,
Yep.
okay, so at 11, I'll go Jalen Waddle. I like Waddle. Like, I don't have an issue with the player. I think he does everything you want well. He's a good route runner. He's got good hands. I think he attacks the ball well. Some people argue he can be in the conversation for the top wide receiver in this class. I just don't see it. But he's very dynamic. Like, if you're getting him anywhere from 7 to 12, I mean, it's a win for you because he's a really good wide receiver. I think he will be a really, really solid. He's nice enough receiver that you could see him used as kind of your outside, your Z receiver, or in the slot. And I think he would produce well in either role. And throughout the game, you'll probably see him moved around in those roles because he is such a dynamic player. So I'm a big fan of Waddle. I like him. There's so many other guys in this draft that I like just a little bit more.
Yeah, he reminds me of like a better Christian
Hmm.
Kirk, just known floor out of him. He's not someone that is going to win you weeks, but he won't lose you weeks. And there's not much left that I would rather have. I almost said I would rather have who I would pick next, but who I would pick next isn't the same profile as him. So known floor, especially this late, sure, I'll get behind
Okay.
that.
Who you got to round out the first round?
Okay, so obviously I don't have a safe receiver, so I'll go with a completely sky high ceiling and no floor. Seth Williams, wide receiver, Auburn, just height, weight, speed, and just if you throw the ball up, it's his ball. Um, like I said, sky high ceiling, but he might be out of football in a couple of years also. There just aren't many other options that I feel warrant not having the upside. I mean, does Kylan Hill land in a spot that you feel all right about it? Does the one guy who still likes Shuba Hubbard, does he land all right? Maybe. Um, there just aren't many other options I would look at. I mean, maybe Fryermuth, maybe the guy who picks at the top of the second needs one and watch the other tight ends head off and he feels afraid. Maybe, but there's a pretty firm line in the sand after maybe this one and two, three
Yeah.
more. I mean, are we adding Fabio into there also, or? But I mean, after these next 3, 4, 5 selections,
Yeah.
ugh.
All right. So we have 8 minutes left. Let's see if we can get through the second round in 8 minutes.
All right, let's
All
fly.
right, so I'm gonna go Trevor Lawrence at the 2-1 because I anticipate he'll be a first round pick. I mean, people are in love with him, but
No way.
I know, right? So we'll.
He's not going to be a first rounder. What? No.
All right, so T Law at the 13, which would be the 2-1.
Kylan Hill. Just he's the last of the running backs that I feel fine about. I mean, there's not much behind him that's known role wise.
There you go.
So I'll take
All
Hill.
right. Next, I will go Terrace Marshall. I like him. I like his profile. I like the athletic ability. There's some red flags, but we'll take a shot here in the early second.
Yeah, height, weight, speed for him. He performed I hated him. I hated him out of high school. I liked him after his first year. Hated him after the sophomore year, which is ironic because he had Burrow. And I kind of liked him after this year. He showed more route running. All right, so 2-4. I'll go Freiermuth. Just I don't like Hunter Long as much as a lot of the others do.
Yeah.
So I'll take Freiermuth, just height, weight, speed for a 250-ish.
Yeah. Well, in
man.
the 1QB non-tight end premium, Hunter Long's not a second rounder. He's probably a third round pick. So I mean, I don't hate it here. Okay, so my top 16 are now officially gone. So I will go number 17, Shuba Hubbard, which would be middle second round. If you can get a running back that's anything like he was prior to the injury in the middle of the second round, you'll get at least some fantasy production. See what happens.
All right, and I don't like what's on here, so I'm going to punt the selection and take Zach Wilson here. Zach Wilson's just he's almost my QB1, not all the way because I'm gonna let someone else take Fabio, but I would select him first or second overall.
Yeah, Josh says he's eyeing Marshall at the 111 in a few leagues. I like what Marshall I think can become at the next level, depending on how. I think the NFL draft will push some of these guys around a little bit. People will fall in love with a landing spot and move guys around. So in Marshall, I could easily see that being one of the guys that gets moved around based on landing spot. But I like him in the early second round. That's kind of my sweet spot for him, at least at this point. All right, so next up, see, this is a tough one for me because I literally I put 18A and 18B, Rondale Moore and Kadarius Toney. So I'm going to go Rondale Moore just because we're up to the wall on time, but I could easily be fine with either receiver here. Both of them kind of have that big playability, kind of a high ceiling type thing. When they explode, they have big games. So I'll go Rondale Moore.
Yeah. He really fell from being a top 5 Devy asset. He fell hard.
And I wonder if injuries really played into it. Because every time he was on the field for an extended period of time, I mean, it was a hammy, it was something tweaked. I mean, that really starts to wear on people.
Yeah. Okay, so what selection
20,
is this?
So this is 2-8.
2-8. I will select Equanimous. I'm sorry, I mean Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yes, they are brothers, and there's a third one in school still. Just the same thing. Just known floor out of a possession slot receiver.
Let's hope he fares better at catching the ball than his brother.
Well, hopefully he can stay on the field.
True story.
I mean, I'd be mad about it, but the Packers selected him in the 5th or 6th round. I'm not mad about it.
All right, I'm going Kadarius Toney, seeing as he's sitting there as well. The big playability at the end of the second round could be intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, can I trade the selection here?
Do you want me to make the last 3 picks? Is that what you're saying?
I'm gonna go with. I don't even have the QB tab up. Trey
Oh
Lance.
boy, look at this.
Just just upside, and it's this late. I don't love any of the receivers left, although I'll take one with my last selection here in a minute, but I don't love any of these height, weight, speed receivers, and yeah, I'll go Lance and just hope it either works out or I can flip him for more in 6 months after
Yeah.
you draft.
Well, so my last pick is mostly just going to be to rib at you, because it's not the guy who's highest rated on my board here. Uh,
Oh, it's a tight end,
no,
right?
I'm gonna go Tamarion Terry, Florida State University alumni. The funniest thing is Terry. If you looked at a year ago, Terry was one of the hottest wide receiver prospects, but he fell off and fell off hard. Obviously, we know he butted heads with the coaching staff, and is it a work ethic issue? I mean, all of these things, like you just don't know what to make of him. I thought he was a physical specimen. I thought he had a really nice athletic profile, and I like big, athletic, tall receivers. I mean, if he goes to the right situation, I don't see how he couldn't develop into somebody's top option. But I just don't know. He's either going to make it to the league or not make it to the league based on work ethic, attitude, all of that. Like, I have a lot of concerns there.
If you watch the Georgia Tech film, throw it out the window. He had a family issue the day before, and his mind wasn't mentally on football. Throw the film out. It was a legit issue that he had. I know for a fact that he had issues with Jimbo, Taggart, and Norvell. He had issues with all three of them.
That's a concern.
If I'm going to have the height, weight, speed upside, can I have issues with only one of the three coaching staffs?
Right.
If he works out, you're selecting him super late here, and I'm fine with it, but just know that you have an out of football by the end of the first season downside.
Potentially. I mean, if he can't fall in line and be the team player, I mean, it's a problem. All right, so make your last selection. Then we have a question from Wilson that I want to get to that I think is a really interesting one.
Okay, I will select the height, weight, speed receiver that I like, Demonte Coxey. He has separation issues once in a while, but height, weight, speed, you're concerned about the 40, but that's what happens when you're 6'3.5". But I think if he can get to a legit, I'm not concerned about how the coaches were from Norvell. I'm a little concerned that you don't have a NFL pipeline there yet. But height, weight, speed, hopefully speed.
Memphis is
But
starting to produce some quality NFL talent. I mean, it's typically running backs here as of late, but I don't hate it. I mean, at the end of the second round, you want to take dart throws and really try to aim for some of those athletically gifted, like you said, height, weight, speed guys. I'm fine with that.
if he runs a 4.6.5, that one's off though.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's hard to trust pro day 40 times though. I mean, like it's very difficult for me when it comes to that. So this will be a really interesting class to look back on in a couple of years and see what really came from some of this, because you're having to trust film more than you are these numbers that are probably inflated or made better by the school. So that's 2 rounds. We gave you 2 rounds. We worked hard to get those in there. If you want more information on these picks, check the YouTube videos. Most of these guys we've made videos on already. So take a look at those. Jump in the Discord chat. I saw our boy Dollar Bill join the Discord chat while we were while we were doing the show tonight. We appreciate it. I want to get to this question before we roll out. So Wilson asks, question about drafting a wide receiver. I drafted very talented wide receivers the last 2 seasons, but they underperformed because they're QB. Hollywood Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Allen Robinson, Darius Slayton. How much do these wide receivers QBs impact? It can be a big deal because with Jerry Jeudy, I would even throw in Cortland Sutton, somebody we were talking about pre-show a little bit. If you have some wide receivers can be successful even with crappy quarterback play. I mean, look at Allen Robinson with Trubisky. I mean, he's been successful in Chicago for a few years, even with not good quarterback play. Um, I think like we've talked about, if you draft good route runners, talent over situation. I mean, if you focus on some of these things, ultimately the player should be able to overperform or take that team to a next level and be able to get you fantasy value. There are still concerns. I mean, a guy like Hollywood Brown or Darius Slayton, I don't know, man. Those offenses are really more predicated on running than passing, so it's going to be harder for them. But Jeudy and Robinson, they should both be wide receivers one or wide receiver ones. Allen Robinson already has been. Jerry Jeudy should be within the next few seasons.
I'm not a Slayton fan either. You're going to have a small segment that loves him. I do not. I'm just going to let someone else own him at that loves him price. Hollywood, I was not a fan of, especially after that landing spot. Jeudy, do not sell him at all. Actually, I'm going to go out and before we hopefully hop on the video games after this, he's someone that if you aren't a fan of your second in some way, shape, or form, you offer your second and anything else you can reasonably think of to go get Jeudy, because the hate for him has went a little far. Oh, he had some issues. Well, he had what was that receiver that played for them that 1 week, that MFL headless or the
the receiver that played quarterback,
that MFL. Yeah, like they had legit issues. Locke was not what you were looking for. Sutton, you were hoping Sutton would be on the field to take safeties away from him. He was the de facto receiver one, and he still looked fine. If you can somehow flip things for him, do it. You hold him and you move on.
And to Wilson's question, how much does quarterback factor into these talented receivers? You draft the talented player over the situation he goes to. So if Jamar Chase goes to Houston, well, Jamar Chase is still the best receiver, and he's going to be on the field, and he's going to be with the team for many years. Like he hopefully will make it past the rebuild, and maybe they make good decisions, bring in good players, or maybe, Deshaun Watson sticks around. I mean, obviously he's not going to Houston, but I'm just saying, if he goes to a team that's in a really dire straits, you still draft the best player and the most talented player there. Don't be afraid. The player's just super talented. So Wilson's question is more, on the quarterback side. Yes, these receivers, love them, hate them, whatever. But how much does quarterback factor into the equation?
I kind of look at, say, Mims as someone that I look at for an example on this. I let the situation filter its way out later, and I don't worry about it. If you have Bateman, Williams, or who's the other height, weight, speed freak?
I mean, you have Terrace Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall for sake of argument. If you have one of those three land in Houston, this is an asset that helps you select first next year while also not hurting his own value. You're going to have someone who at the end of the year goes, oh, he only had, this many receptions. He didn't score often. So what? At the end of it, so what? If he helps you select first, just sit on him, draft something else next year. Like, if he's not going to be a top 24 receiver or something. The difference between receiver 40 and receiver 85, so what? He's not going to be on the field for you anyways. Just select talent, have it work its way out later. Hopefully, it works its way out. If you're selecting situation over talent, I'm the Clyde Edwards-Helaire truther here. This does not apply to that situation. Anyways, but you select talent over at first, second, and third, and just hope it works out.
Yeah, the situations change, and it changes regularly. I mean, the NFL, every few years, there's just change. I mean, a lot of change. I mean, even if you did draft Aaron Jones's handcuff in CEH last year, I mean, you never know. I mean, anything's possible. And you take the talented player. You take the best player. You take the most athletically gifted. I mean, whatever your way of rating a guy is, you take your best players and let the rest figure itself out in time. Just the way it works.
Yes.
So hopefully, Wilson, that helped. If you continue to have questions, make sure you throw them in the chat. Make sure you go into Discord, our Facebook communities, hit us up on Twitter. Whatever way you communicate best, we're here to help. As always, keep it locked here. Our Monday and Wednesday shows are back regularly. We're talking rookies mostly right now on both shows. Our Monday night show, we're focusing on IDP. As you can see, this mock, we didn't include IDP, but Micah Parsons would have been drafted in the second round somewhere, just like in the Superflex show. Other than that, there's not a lot of IDP options at the moment that I think would slide up that far. But if you have questions IDP-wise, the Monday night show, we've been talking rookies. We've been talking defensive rookies, and we're going to keep talking about defensive rookies. We'll do a mock draft with IDP in the next few weeks or so on the Monday show. So keep it locked there if you have those questions. Obviously, here we're going to keep talking offensive rookies, getting you ready for your rookie drafts. Then we'll flip back to Devy once we get through draft season. And then there you go. So don't forget, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification icon. All that stuff you hear me do in every other video you've watched. Hopefully you've watched them all. Do it. Do it now. We appreciate it. We love you guys. We thank you for hanging out with us and having the conversation with us. We will talk to you again next week. Take care of everything. Be safe.